Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Sam Dosa, business coach and mentor and burnout specialist, with my co-host Suki Waiwala, award-winning mentor and a father and a business entrepreneur. And we have a privilege of our fabulous and dynamic guest, Nick Haines.
Nick, hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well, very excited to be here. Thank you very much, Suki. Thank you very much, Sam, for inviting me. And yeah, looking forward to this.
Thank you. We're super excited, actually, to bring you to our Inspired Tribe, because the aim of our Inspired Tribe and our mission, our vision, is obviously to unlock and find our best in that involvement. And who better to have on our amazing sort of TV show here than Nick Haines himself. Nick Haines, the man who's actually known as the Unlock Man, the person who is the Vitality Test founder and the founder of the Five Institute team, just in case everybody who's watching hasn't met Nick before. Now, if you are ever lost or slightly challenged in life, this is the podcast and the TV channel for you, because we're going to be talking very closely and intimately with Nick Haines, who's just what I call a legend, and I mean this genuinely from my heart. I've known Nick for the best part of 6 years, probably plus now, and it's just been a beautiful journey. And so, to our first question, if I may. So, Nick, just to give you an indication of the kind of people that we have in our Inspired Tribe, they're individuals who are either getting themselves ready for business or getting themselves ready for relationships, basically taking their world to the next level within themselves. But they also want to keep it real. So we connect with our team individuals where we share with them really successful individuals like yourself, but ones who are going to be really close and honest and integrous about their challenges in life as well, their inspired journey to where they are today. So if I can just start the day off, and I hope everybody's thoroughly ready and waiting to hear this amazing interview. Nick, if I can go back to kind of yourself a second, if you could just share with me, if you don't mind, just a little bit about the Five Institutes, and more importantly, what I'm really interested in, because I currently personally know you, and I want all of our Inspired Tribe to know you personally as well, is your amazing journey from the eastern half of the world as well, if you don't mind.
Okay. So the kind of I'm a kind of serial entrepreneur. Inability to say that. So I have had lots of different things that I've done over the years. Five Institute is an incarnation of my love of Chinese philosophy and energetics. And the idea is really a way to bring that to the wider world, to really kind of solve some of the big challenges that we have, and to build lives that are inspired and do the things that we need to get done in the world. So it's not just my baby, but it's very close to my heart.
Amazing. And one of the questions I want to share is, you've had quite a coveted journey, but we do get straight into it here. That's what the Inspired Tribe is about. So I'm going to ask you a significant question for me. And I think most of us, this seems to regularly come up as being the number one question that we're trying to achieve, is what is your most significant memory, if I was to call you back and say as a child, from just to get to know a bit about Nick Haines, what is your most significant memory that you feel has actually kind of defined you and helped you as an adult going forward?
Okay. Oh, that's a great question. Great question. I think that has to be when I was 5 and I suddenly came back home and everything changed. And my mother was very poorly. She was hospitalized for over a year, and I was suddenly fostered around for a year amongst different families. And that was that's a 5. Part of a big. Suddenly, you're fostered. You're being moved around. You don't see your mother. Your brothers and sisters are all in different places, and so that was a really significant memory for me or experience for me. And I think it was,
I'm sorry, I think a little bit, but do you know, I just want to pinpoint that. Look, Nick is such a successful, such a formidable human being and individual, let alone his skills to understand human beings and unlock them. But to be a person who's actually, who's looked back and not seen it as being fostered as being a negative. Yes, of course there was challenges, but I think I just want you guys to all listen, Inspire Tribe, just to have a think about what's going on, how a person can actually change their world to be the best they can possibly be. Sorry, Nick, I just wanted to point that out to our audience. So please, back to yourself.
That's great. That's great. I hadn't thought of it like that, but so it was my most significant memory because it did. You have events like that, and things change, obviously. And as a 5-year-old, I came to some conclusions. The first one was that I was foster moved around because I had no inherent value. You get rid of things because they're not valuable. So that set a foundation stone that this person has no value. So they moved around. The other thing it did was that event came out of the blue. So it gave me an obsession around trying to understand the unknown, partly because I didn't want to be caught out by anything like that again. So if I could understand how people were reacting, what was happening in situations, I could perhaps know if something like that was going to happen again. And then the third thing was, if you moved around from families quite quickly, what you have to do is you have to work out how you can fit into that new circumstance as quickly as possible. So I became hyper vigilant, watching everything, trying to understand everything. I became hyper, how do I fit in? How do people fit in? How do relationships formed? On a bedrock of this person has no value. So it's an interesting combination to start out with at 5. So yeah, that was the most significant memory for me.
I just think that's it's truly amazing because you've got something that, I mean, at the age of 5, we all understand that the cognitive brain is not actually fully engaged yet. But when you talk about some people who use adversity in their life to turn it into a positive of themselves, it's actually ended up becoming one of your super skills, which we've seen here, being vigilant and adaptable, and as you were saying yourself, predictable. You can predict things when looking for algorithms. Amazing. Thank you, Nick. This is going to inspire people.
One more thing I would like to add. Thank you, Suki. That was quite interesting to hear what you were saying about when you're 5 years old. And Nick's journey has been when he was 5 and he started to be vigilant about what surroundings are going to be creating for him. There's one thing which I've heard or I've learned about things that by the age of 7, we have our blueprint already been designed for ourselves, how we are going to be creating our life going forward. And with Nick's journey when he was 5 years old, that is quite a dynamic thought process at that time. And it's not everybody's, what I call it, a journey at that time. People are very scared, very unsettled about themselves. And in his journey, he was moving around. And that was quite a significant achievement, I would say.
Yeah. Or just a series of unfortunate accidents. Or fortunate accidents. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I like fortunate more, and I'm sure our Inspired Tribe likes that as well.
Yeah. It's certainly very fortunate. Yeah, I regard that as a blessing. That whole experience. Although at the time, it's pretty terrifying at the time, but it was fine.
So excellent. just to clarify before I hand over to Sam for his next question, which will probably take you somewhere else, just so that everybody can get it. I mean, being terrified at the age of 5, I can't even begin to understand the rockiness and the rehabilitation to a certain extent of the mind, of the emotions, and how you went from one extreme to another, being hypervigilant and being aware and probably looking for the fault within yourself, as you mentioned earlier on, your no value side of things. But just before we move on to the next section, I just want to touch on here. Is there anything specifically that you could, if any of the audience people have either got children that they've lost or were a child themselves through fostering, or have contact with people in the fostering arena. I mean, just children as a whole, or humans as a whole, right? Adults as well, right? I mean, what do you suggest that they could do? I'm looking for your infinite wisdom here within the 5 Institute.
Yeah.
How would they overcome that?
Well, I think it's really difficult because every circumstance is completely different. So I was fostered around people that I kind of mainly knew, so that was a different experience. If someone was being fostered around people that they don't know, one of the things we do at the 5 Institute is we really try and get people to understand the nature of human beings and what the fundamental needs were. My need as a human being is to be shown some love, to have some freedom, and to understand. So within my fostering experience, if I was shown some love, which I was, and I was given some understanding, which I kind of wasn't, and I didn't have any freedom. So I met, one of my core needs was met, that I was shown some love, but I didn't really know what was going on, and I didn't really have any choice. But then, so it's about when someone has any experience, whether it's a change in an organization or they move somewhere, you've got to say, okay, what's this individual's core needs? Do they need to feel safe? Do they need to feel free? Do they need to feel loved? Do they need to understand? Or that everyone has, so it's meeting that fundamental core need. So there's not a universal fix. It's just looking for what that individual is asking for. If they're asking for an explanation, they want to understand. If they're rebelling, you've got to give them some freedom. If they're looking and doing, I need love, then give them love. If they're saying, I'm scared, and give them safety and security. And if they are feeling alone, either let them be alone or give them company, a dog or something, or a cat or a teddy bear or a book. So it's listening to what the person is saying they need and just doing it. It's not rocket science.
Well, I've got to say, Nick, you're saying it's not rocket science, but rarely do people look into it. And I'm sure we'll cover that a bit later with how their needs are, but I'm sure there's a second later on. Sam, over to yourself.
Thank you. So Nick, about, we are what we call ourselves intrapreneur. It's not sometime built in. We have to work towards that sort of a journey between us, because we are working on so many jobs, from one job to another job. And so my question to you is, what was your first business or your life success in your life?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'm gonna spread out the answer to something slightly bigger. I think my big success in business was, say, if you take my acupuncture practice. I had an acupuncture practice which I was in for about 35 years, and I think my big success was being able to stick at something for 35 years that was at time. So I did a lot of end-of-life care in amongst the work I did. I did a lot of hard-edge stuff, dealing with people at very difficult times in their life. I never shied away from tackling the hardest, most profound, the most tragic times in people's lives. And I never shied away from that. And I did that for 35 years. So I don't think it's a single success. I think it's the stamina to keep going at something that is kind of really tough to do and it's easy to dip in and out of that stuff of people's lives at the tragic times, but it's something different to stick at it for that length of time. So I think that's actually my success, that the durability, Duracell, man, to stick at the most tragic times with people and not to give up, until the point I decided I chose to step away. But I never gave up until I chose to step away.
That's quite interesting the way you described it, because when we start a business, as we said, the statistic it says that you are going to fail in the next 2 years' time or 5 years' time. You're going to pick up and go. You won't be able to continue, but the consistency, the persistency you actually showed, that's defined you, that grounds you, and that gives you a tenacity to show this is what has been built in you, which creates the momentum of yourself and the resilience. We are all entrepreneur. We go through with our own journeys as well. But what has shown in your journey is quite out of this world, I would say.
Yeah, no, I tend to stick at things. So I've also co-founded the Northern College of Acupuncture, and that's in its 30th year. So I tend to stick at my relationships, my work, and at the same time, I'm starting new things all the time. So it's an interesting combination of durability and stickability and innovation.
So on continuation on your success and your first business, there must be a lot of ups and downs in your life as well as in your business. So if I may ask you this question about your failures, which are being extended in your life and in your business, or which I will rephrase my question, which is, which failure expanded your mind the most?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that failure, I think, was one on holiday. And my brother, I was about to climb up into a roof in a big barn in France. So it's really high up. And my brother said to me, hey, let me hold the ladder for you. And I went, no, I'm fine, I'm cool. And he walked off. I climbed up the ladder, climbed very, very high up into this big barn, and then fell down onto a concrete floor.
Wow.
Broke my back, my ribs, lost my spleen, was in hospital for a long period of time, couldn't work, scared the life out of my family and my wife, my kids, my father, I terrified everybody. Very, very nearly didn't make it on a number of occasions. So that fundamental failure, when someone says, you're doing something, let me give you a hand, let me hold the ladder. I was going up very high, so I was stretching myself beyond my own safety. And my brother said, let me give you a hand, let me hold the ladder for you while you do that. And that point of failure was saying, no, don't do that. Or me refusing that help because I didn't want to be a burden, I didn't want to be demanding, I didn't want to, we refuse help for lots of different reasons. And sometimes it's not significant, and other times that was really very significant. And from that place of that terrible accident, I changed the way I did things. I started 5 Institute. I started on a different journey. It changed everything in my life. So I don't think it was a failure, but it certainly was a failure to accept help. And that was a big lesson for me, that you can say, happy to be in a team, happy to work together, happy to have help, whatever.
yeah, absolutely. What you have just actually talk about is asking. We entrepreneur are like solopreneur, not wanted to share our failures, or we just feel that it's something we do not want to share. We don't want to tell everybody that we are losing our account, we are losing our business, we are losing this, and we do not want to connect with those people who are quite like business mentor available to their disposal, but actually they feel that is some sort of a threat. And I always learn one thing: if I don't know, I ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. That's the bottom line. You are not going to be what you call it. You know everything in the world of business, because if I knew all about business, I would be not going to be present over here. I would be doing something else. Yeah. Because like Suki has been very generous about his time. He's about his wisdom. He's about showing people the next level of how to mentor, how to do business, how to work along with it, as well as yourself. When you did your 5 Institute questionnaire, I did myself a vitality test as well. Exceptionally deep down, what I learned from that as well was quite significant to me as well.
Oh, thank you. That's good to hear. And I think
can you hear me there, Nick?
Yes, yeah, I can.
Perfect. So can I just evolve on that concept? Thank you very much, Sam, for such a great question and evolving. And you know, I'm not joking, Nick. I think our audience, our Inspired Tribe, will definitely agree that once again we've kind of allocated one of the most powerful individuals that we could get hold of and communicate with, and we're really truly humbled to have you. And I know we see each other as brothers, but I'm very, very humbled that that you were willing to share your life journey and your inspired journey with everybody in this Inspired Tribe. So thank you for that. And now I'm going to go into another question. It's probably involves something. You know, when you were talking specifically about your brother and yourself, did you find, because I'm very certain, you know, one of the questions that we've had coming through from my WhatsApp, if you believe, not from here, is about trust. Did you find, Nick, that trust had been affected between, you know, trusting other people now, the reliability side of it, the dependability side of things? And if it did get challenged, how did you personally overcome that for our audience to hear, please?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it depends. Some of that answer to that question is that is true for some people, but it wasn't true for me. My energy type, I have very low water energy, so I don't have big concerns about trust or safety or security. So my trust wasn't affected by that, and it wasn't part of my decision-making process as to whether I trusted my brother or I didn't trust my brother. It's more, for me, it was more of not wanting to be a burden for someone else, or take up their time, or it goes back to that I was of less value. So it goes back to that fundamental core thing of, was I valuable enough to take up his time to hold the ladder? Trust was never in there as a thing. It was about my value and his time of taking it up. That's what made me say no to it. Whereas other people might say no because they don't trust the person, or they don't want to be vulnerable, or someone else may say no because actually they want to have the freedom to not be trapped in a reliant relationship. Whereas for me, it was was I worth taking his time for those 10 minutes holding the ladder?
But just to interject there, I want now to talk a bit more about your body of work, because honestly, it's genius. So you and I have had many, many long conversations with Sam and yourself on various occasions, and seen the correlations between your founded work with the 5 Institute and the Chinese psychology and healing energy levels. So could I ask you a favor? Now, I'm going to be a bit cheeky. Now, I appreciate that you have very closed quarters and selected individuals that you share the information with, but I'm afraid, Nick, you're on our Inspired Tribe channel. So I'm going to ask you, and I'm putting you on the spot if you don't mind, if you can share, and if you don't mind, just give us a small touch on your body of work. What exactly? I mean, you were talking about yourself wanting to be loved, etc., and that you not taking the time of somebody else, and was I worth it? Could you do me a favor? And I'm just going to profile very quickly. I know there's 5 energies, but could you please do us a humble favor of just going through all the 5 energies and just talk a little bit about them? Because I want everybody who's listening today to Inspire Tribe to actually see themselves or see a loved one in your language, in your identification. Because I'm going to tell you now, team, everybody, you need to get out of your own way, and you need to do the vitality test. There's no question. So in a moment, I think Sam's going to put the link on there for you. There's no affiliation. Guess why? It's free. Nick is just unbelievable with this information. Nick, please, the stage is yours. Please tell us about finding themselves in it, please.
Okay. So the basic thing is we have a mixture of all of these 5 energies. So I'll talk about them individually, but we have a mixture of all of them. And we often have 1 or 2 that are more dominant. And the vitality test is a way to measure those energies. It's an assessment to say what those energies are. So I'll talk about them individually, but we have them a blend of them. So the first one is kind of water energy, and every energy gives you a big question in life. So the water energy, the big question is, am I safe? Is it safe? So someone with a lot of water energy will be thinking about the consequences. They'll be thinking about safety. How is this going to play out? What's going to happen? What's happened in the past? How is this going to play out in the future? So they'll always be thinking about safety, consequences. They have a big thing about what's my deep purpose. Like water, it leaves its mark on the earth. Think about canyons and glaciers and valleys. It's all water. Every other energy is very transitory. Then wood energy, it's related to spring. It's about innovation. It's about creativity. Their big question is, am I free? Are we free? Am I being trapped? So you'll see lots of entrepreneurs that are talk about lifestyle entrepreneurs, and they want their freedom, and they have all these ideas and their innovation. So you're often seeing, they say the most important thing is freedom. Well, that's true for them, but the most important thing for a water energy type is safety. So you build your business based, or your life based on your energy type. So wood energy types, they want their freedom, they want innovation. They hate it when there's injustice, and they'll take a stand against bullies. They will break rules, but they'll reinforce every rule that they think is true. So that's why they hate this injustice. You broke the rule. And very flexible and very stubborn at the same time. Then you have the fire energy types, and they are expansive, expressive. They're talkers. They're all the time like fire. It wants to expand outwards. Fire illuminates, and it lights things up, and it shines. It allows us to see. So they're great communicators. But their big question is, am I loved and appreciated for who I really am? And it's not this, oh, love me, love me. It's just, how do you feel towards me? And they need to be loved, and there's no two ways about it. It's not a bad thing. They just need to be loved. Then you have earth energy types, and they're much more grounded. They have a slower energy. They'll take an awful long time to listen and understand. And their big question is, do I understand, and am I understood? So they're teachers or communicators. So I have a lot of earth energy. So my big thing is, do I understand what's going on? So that was my response to my 5-year-old of, I don't think I'm loved because I've got a lot of fire energy, because I can't be loved. Therefore, I probably don't have any value. I don't understand what go on. I'm really stressed. So earth energy types, they're all the time trying to understand what's going on. They'll take an endless amount of time to try and do that. And then metal energy types, that's related to autumn, and that's about things finishing and ending. And their big question is, what's missing, what isn't there, what still needs to be finished. So they can sometimes appear to be, oh, you're really negative. You're always saying what's missing and what isn't right. That's just what they see, and that's where their brilliance lies. And they can sometimes be, they have an ability to detach and step outwards and see things from the outside. And that's a gift. Whereas every other energy is all stuck in there, and they can go, oh, if we look at this from the outside, I think I can see this. It's a great talent. It's a great talent. So they're the energies, and we have a mixture of them, and we're kind of born with a certain type.
But I just want to, before I hand over to Sam, I'm going to just clarify something, because obviously if you're a person who's viewing this, Inspired Tribe, if you're viewing this, you're thinking, yeah, this sounds very similar to another psychometric, Myers-Briggs, DISC, etc. The reality is that this does, but this is much more on the spiritual and scientific level from the Chinese side of things. So the reality is that this actually overlaps a number of those psychometrics from my memory of our long discussions we've had. Now, Can I ask a favor here, if you don't mind? Because I want everybody to understand, the real power that we're actually getting right now. This is, team, I'm just going to tell you, this is the unlock code. If you truly understand who you are, you can then turn around and be the best player in your own life for yourself. So I just want to recap something, if I may. So just 2 or 3 things I've seen there. Now, what we call is, what you've just shared with us is what I call gold, or nowadays platinum or diamond, whatever you want to call it nowadays. But the reality is that, you know, your words, could I just ask you to recap the 5, what we call the inherent questions that you've come across for water, wood, etc., if it's possible. Just to say, water, the inherent rhetorical question that's always running through a water mind process, and how they can be possibly acceptance of this, that may help the person move forward.
Yep. So water energy, am I safe? Is it safe? That's what that's their core need. Wood energy types, am I free? Are we free? That's their fun. That's what they strive towards. Fire energy types is all about the heart, the passion, the love. Am I loved? That's what they need. Are we loved? Is there love? Earth energy types, ground, down to earth. Do I understand? Am I understood? Is this making sense? And then that metal energy type, detached, autumn. What's missing? What isn't there? What hasn't yet been done? And they all come from each of those perspectives. That's their core need and their value to other people.
So now, just a question, if I can just clarify. So that's all the 5 energies, and people should be able to see themselves in this. So power of somebody truly knowing themselves.
Sorry, Suki, you just cut out a little bit there in that question.
I'll repeat again. So what is the power, in your words, of a person actually truly knowing themselves in the world? Because is it really that important? I mean, this is the question that I've just been posted, someone just sent it over to me. Is it really that important to know yourself? You know, guess what? I've got a feeling I kind of know what I am. Does that make sense? So yeah. I'm definitely of the advocate that it does really matter. So I just want it in your words, because you, team, Inspire Tribe, you just don't understand. You have an access to a true genius here in Nick Haines. I just want to just enhance that, and I don't care how humble and humility-driven you are by saying, no, of course not, Suki. You are, and I just want everybody to understand how important it is for them to truly understand themselves.
Yeah. Well, there's a number of different reasons, but say we're in a business world, okay? Say if you're looking at designing your business, you're starting out or you're moving into the next phase and you're designing your business. There are lots of different options. But if you're someone with a lot of wood energy, you really need to design your business to give you freedom. So a membership site may give you lots of money, but it won't give you freedom. So there are lots of ways that there are fantastic business models out there, and you can be sold on one or attract or know that there's one that's a certain up and coming and is really thing, or there's some great software for it, or whatever it is, and it can absolutely logically make sense. It will make money, it will give you this, that. But if it doesn't meet that core need, say freedom, then you will sabotage your success at some point. Or if you don't sabotage your success, you'll end up exactly where you don't want to be. And that's not the plan. So so you might be someone that likes to have a membership site, because what that gives you is security of knowing there is a regular amount coming in. So have a membership site. Or if you're someone that has lots of fire energy, don't design a business that's online that involves you behind a screen the whole time, because you will die inside if you're not having actual personal contact with other human beings on a regular basis. And social media is not the same thing. So you could just say, know yourself, and that way you can design a business that you're not going to sabotage, you're going to be highly successful at, and you're going to get to a happy place, and so is your family, friends, and everyone around you. So that's just one example why I think it's a really good idea to know yourself. But it's also in terms of your relationships with other people.
Just really, so powerful. Just carry on. Relationships, I love it.
Yeah, really important. So I know that if I don't take exercise and I don't keep things moving and I'm not innovating and doing new things all around, I get very stuck. And when I get very stuck, I get kind of grumpy and irritable and think that's not a good place for my family if I'm grumpy and irritable. So I do everything to give me a movement of energy with all the things I need to do to keep my energy flowing, because that's what I need as an individual, to keep me a happy bunny within my family and my relationships. My wife, she needs security. So how do I work out my desire for freedom and movement with her desire and need for security? Because they don't fit together. So how do I design something that would create both of them? And I've got to, otherwise my marriage is over, or I'm putting her under an enormous amount of pressure and stress because she's always wondering, are we safe? Are we going to pay the bill? Whatever. So knowing myself, knowing the people around me, for me is absolutely essential. You can't, for me, it's an impossibility. But then I have a desire to understand.
Absolutely. Very valuable what you have actually just mentioned. And one thing I just wanted to add over here is when you said knowing yourself is quite fundamental, because that would give you the strength within you to make decisions, to make a right decision on the right time. Because as you said, relationships are very important, whether you are husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or with your siblings as well. Your knowing yourself is quite significant, makes a difference in everybody else's life as well. So following on that answer of your last question, I would like to ask you about how people will remember as your legacy. If somebody wants to remember Nick Haines, okay, we will know that Nick Haines has worked tremendously in so many fields. Five Institute is one of the best area where you have dedicated your life. But if there will be a remembrance, and how they will remember you?
The thing that it probably is the thing that has got me into my biggest trouble. And that is my big purpose in life is I want everybody to have someone in the world that's there for them. That's my big driver, big purpose in life. That's why the Five Institute is as it is. That's why we do relationships. That's why we choose kindness as a fundamental core of what we do, because if you have deep understanding of each other in relationships and things, and you have kindness, then everyone will have someone in the world that's there for them, because there won't be misunderstanding about who we are. So my big purpose in life is that everyone has someone in the world that's there for them. My mistake in life was that I thought it had to be me. So I will probably be remembered for being there for other people, but I don't think that. And I did that in that 35 years. I did that, but I would actually like my legacy to be that we are all there for each other, rather than me. So I would probably be remembered. And you know this, Suki. You ring me up and I am there for you, aren't I?
I've got to say, team, 100% the question he's had. If I send him a text, he's texting me back 5 times if there's a challenge, and I hope we do the same sort. Sorry, back to you, Sam.
And so I'm probably remembered for that. My challenge was I thought I had to be there for everyone and got very burnt out and didn't. You say I answered tests. Well, I went through a big phase of not getting back to people because I was overwhelmed with having been there for thousands of people in the most desperate times and got very burnt out for that. So I will probably be remembered for that. But I think it's I would like a wider legacy that we're all there for each other rather than me there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite important and significant that remembrance has to be what we have been serving to others to be remembered. Because everybody goes through their life journey. We have ups and downs, and that's what make us what we are right now. And you have actually given a food for thought about, we are serving. We are here as a servant to serve others with unconditional love. It's not about saying that, I would like to do it, and you are not there. If you can't do it, what I've learned in my journey so far. If somebody asks me something and if I can't do, I say immediately I can't do it, because that might hurt him at that time. but not after 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and he's constantly calling me and asking me the same question. Because that's, we have to be very authentic to ourselves before we will going to be authentic to others. And what the fundamental thing, what you have mentioned here as well earlier, that if you know yourself, then you will be able to know others. So it's quite important. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate that.
And thank you very much, Sam, for saying about that we can say no, because that's a real struggle. That has been a real struggle for me to say, actually, no, and being clear and upfront. So that's a really good, and I know it's, I think it's a really good reminder for all of us that we can say no. That might be the best thing to do, rather than, oh, I don't want to disappoint, I don't want to let down, I don't want to, whatever we go through.
Yes, absolutely. Before Suki will continue to ask you some very more interesting question, I just would like to say thank you to people who have joined us today live. Shakil has actually mentioned quite interesting about his journey when he was 3 years old, and he actually went into hospital about his appendix, and then he actually gone through with his own journey as well. What you talk about your strength when you were 5 years old, and he actually mentioned that as well. And then Hyacinth has also joined us, and also thanking Suki for introducing her to the wonderful world of Nick Haines. And also definitely also about don't be afraid to ask. Is if you don't ask, you don't get. And again, we also have Hamid Singh as well joining us. So thank you very much, everybody who has joined us live with our exceptional guest, Nick Haines, who has been sharing his wisdom with us, his journey with us. And there are a lot of links we are going to be sharing on this segment. So please take advantage of that, because if you are going to do a vitality test, you will actually, it's self-explanatory. And even though if you don't understand anything, Nick is always available to help you with that.
Wow. So honestly, I want to iterate something. So that my team's just watching the Inspired Tribe, that there's something significant that we do in every one of these events. Now, the live event, actually coming to view the live event, is something special, because if you ask a question, we'll actually help you live. It's a bit of what we call a live coaching session as well. So please feel free to put something down in the downline, and then we'll answer that question to Nick shortly, as I did earlier on with one of my other clients asking. Now, the question that arises in my head, I mean, Nick, let me ask yourself. I think both Sam and myself and the Inspired Tribe that are listening today are absolutely spoiled. I think maybe what you've been talking about really hits home, and more of it's going to hit home as soon as we do, afterwards have it all sort of boggles in your brain and settles down a little bit. Now, we all have our little view of our life and our version of our world, etc. But I just want to expand a little bit on this. Look, Nick, how does anybody get hold of you? I mean, what is the most preferred way of linking and connecting with Nick Haines? And more importantly, like Hyacinth was just saying a moment ago, introducing themselves into the Nick Haines world. Because honestly, he's a genius. Tribe, you've got to get involved with him. So how do we, introduce our tribe into your environment to help other people more? I mean, we all have our own following. I appreciate that, but you know what? We're all human beings. We should love and help each other. It's the love we're trying to share. So in context, please, how do we get hold of you, and what methods are there to get hold of you? And more importantly, are there any events happening soon? Is there something that we can attend your event for? Or finally, I'm going to talk about the vitality test, and we'll leave that segment for a second, but just about how do we get hold of you if there's another event?
Yeah. So the best way to kind of join the tribe is to take the vitality test, and there'll be links there to our Facebook group. So you search on Facebook the vitality test. We've got a Facebook group, and Hyacinth is she's there, and we absolutely love her, and lots of other people that I've seen popping up online as part of that group.
And Hyacinth, you from the Inspired Dinner Club when you came and spoke at the dinner club. Remember?
Yeah.
What an evening that was. And there's another one tonight, by the way, just in case you're listening. And that's I'm over in Bratislava today, sadly, but there's one tonight. But please, back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can do it like that. You can find me on Facebook. There'll be some links to this. Email me at nick@5institute. It's very easy. nick@5institute. Yeah, so lots of different ways to find and connect.
So, in the world of the 5 Institute, or Nick, or what I call the energy healing, what is the next step? I mean, if somebody's interested in understanding how they can become a practitioner, or whatever you call it at the moment, I mean, is there an event? Is there a training event coming up soon?
Well, what we've got is we've got two main things that we do. We've got something called This Vital Life, which is a monthly membership, and we do quests. We follow a journey on a particular subject. So we're right in the middle of a relationship quest at the moment, which is going over about 8 weeks, and we're exploring the energies in our relationships, how we interact, and you can find about that on the 5 Institute. Then we do various things like one of the big things that came out of that accident for me was a lot of my clients were really angry with me when I had my accident, because they said, if you had died, everything you do and everything you know would have just gone like that. Why don't you write about it? Why don't you externalize it? You haven't done anything. And that was because I was too busy wrapped up helping individuals. So the vitality test is an expression of that. But we also train people to be able to interpret profiles, to be able to look at someone's vitality test and say, okay, this person is suited for this. This is how they're going to interact within a team. This is how. So we train interpreters. So the vitality test is automated, gives you lots of great content. But if you want someone specifically to interpret it for you, or within a context, then we train people to do that. And that's the way of getting me out of the equation as quickly as possible.
I love that. That's the humility. So what's the next date for the next interpreter training?
The next one in the UK will be in September. Very inefficient. I don't keep the dates in my head. But email me at nick@5institute, and if you're interested in any of the interpreter training, or you can go to 5institute/interpreter2, which will have lots of details on
That's
it.
the one. Okay, so we'll put the link up in a second, interpreter2/interpreter2 if we can on the screen. What I want to know, Nick, is if it's something we can talk about. The vitality test. Now, with the vitality test, not a test to pass or fail, but the question I ask yourself, this directly, from my memory of working on this, so if you could just share a few things. If we go on to the vitality test and go online and follow the instructions, how long will it take, and what kind of questions will they be, and what are we expecting at the end? What's the result we're expecting at the end of the vitality test? And we'll put that link up in a moment.
Yeah. So it's interesting with the name test, vitality test. I might have chosen something different if I was starting again. But the test, what we're doing is we're not testing you. What we're doing is we're testing scenarios and situations to see what your response. So we ask, you're at the dentist and the dentist is running late. What would your response be? Would you start chatting with people? So we're going to give you different things. So we test, you're involved in a car accident. So they're interesting questions because they try and get you to think how you would respond within a wide variety of situations. You're trapped in a car, you're this and that. And it's quite hard to fake it, to pretend to be a different sort of person, because it's hard to see the patterns that are running through them. So it takes about 15, 20 minutes to run through. Some people do it really quickly. Other people say, oh, I could be this, I'm not sure, what about this? And then other people go, yep, me.
Got it. So I'm just going to add something in there, because we've got a major amount of conflicts that usually happen within this arena, because people, they tend to be of a particular crowd, the Myers-Briggs followers, and by the way, all these assessments, all these psychometric assessments are absolutely spot on. There's no challenge there. I mean, both Nick and myself and Sam have had very high-level conversations around this because we follow DISC, and I've incorporated a lot of Five Institute and Your Vitality's logic into this as well, because we've both shared each other's programs over the years, haven't we? So the question I want to bring into the context is, a lot of individuals, sometimes I've had this regularly, and some just WhatsApp me and said, can you keep it anonymous, because they don't want to be abrasive. So I do apologize. So the question specifically, if I read it out, it is, if I've already done an assessment, let's say a Myers-Briggs, which is what they've written down here, how does this conflict with doing a secondary assessment with the vitality assessment or test, or doesn't it? And if so, why?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's you can, if you're looking at a view, you can look at it from different angles and and that gives you a complete picture as to what you're seeing. There are some differences. There are some quite fundamental core differences between, say, Myers-Briggs and the vitality test, because Myers-Briggs is based on YinYang. It's a Jungian test, YinYang. Introvert, extrovert, in, out. So it's a polarity-based test. Whereas vitality is looking for a pattern and a shape that isn't trying to say you are this or this. It's saying both can exist at the same time. So I can be someone that is, so all characteristics can exist at the same time, which is far more like DISC, where you can have a pattern. So it's looking for patterns rather than polarities. So I think if you've done Myers-Briggs as a Jungian test with yin-yang, you'll find the vitality test is quite interesting because it will give you an explanation as to why you are introvert and extrovert, and you can't quite put yourself into a box, or you shift and you change based on circumstance or timing, or so it's a pattern rather than a polarity, similar to DISC. And so I think the tests are very different, to be honest, and they have a different value and a different contribution. And Myers-Briggs is based on Chinese philosophy. That's where Jung got it from in the first place. So it's another side of Chinese philosophy. It's the yin-yang as opposed to the five energies.
Okay.
So they're cousins.
Yeah. Sorry? They're cousins. Yeah, that's right. It's a really lovely way of putting it. They do complement each other. I'm going to just free flow a little bit here because my own wife, Parvinder, Nick, you know her very well, is actually online watching this now, I think, in England, because I am actually in Bratislava today. I was at a Forks event yesterday, so humbled in a different environment. So in specific, she's saying that she's resonating with this so much that she's already going to be doing the test as soon as I put the phone down. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So, Parvinder, if you're watching this or listening, please, yes, go and do it. And then what we'll do is when I get home, we'll talk about it, and you can then SMS Nick and have some help from him as well, because he's the true master at this game.
Absolutely.
Okay, so a couple of questions, if I can just clarify again. I mean, look, this sounds so easy, and it seems maybe sometimes people probably think it's really simple and it's not that important in life. Now, from my background and my understanding with working, and Sam and yourself both obviously agree with this, I'm very certain, because we've had this discussion before, but for the Inspired Tribe, I want them to all understand the value and the benefit of knowing self. Because if you can imagine, team, and I'm going to say this very quickly, if you can imagine a map, and if I said to you, could you get somewhere in particular, let's say the city centre, town hall, nearly everybody on the call will probably say, yes, of course I can get there. It's no problem. Here's the map. I can get straight there. There's no big deal. But the biggest challenge you're going to face is that in your sat nav, should I say, is you would have to put your current coordination into it. So where am I now, so that I can actually get to the town centre, and then it can tell me how far and how close it is. So if you don't know yourself, which is the start position, there is no chance of knowing anybody else or even understanding the world at large in its full benefit. This is what Nick's talking about. Nick's talking about actually knowing yourself, which is the key, so that you can actually learn yourself and play to your skills and your benefits and behavioral benefits and support yourself and support your relationships. So Inspired Tribe, really listen. Now, one thing I'm going to share with yourself is that We're going to close in about 2-3 minutes and 5 minutes in a moment, but I just want to cover the benefits of watching us live is that you get live comments, live conversations. We've got 16 communications at the moment. It's been absolutely wonderful. And I don't know whether you know, Nick, it's been quite valid and quite active as well, people going in and out.
Right.
It is a long interview. So what we do is live business, inspiredbusiness.tv is where we will put on YouTube, we will put the segments of this particular interview by question so that you can see them and you can nip in and out of the questions themselves. But being here live, you're going to get everything. So being, I think life serves he who makes the effort, or she who makes the effort to actually turn up somewhere and take action. So please support us with our monthly. Remember, it's the third Wednesday every month. And the next one that's coming up is going to be, obviously, the third Wednesday in May, when we will bring you another founder, creator, absolute forward person, just like Nick Haines has given us a major, major amount of value today. So Nick, before we close off today, and I'm sure Sam's going to say something about this in a moment, I'd just like to say, I just want to surmise the day. We've been talking about how Nick, for nearly 35, 40 years, if I'm correct, has been delivering the 5 Institute in some guise. He's realized that he's had ups and downs in life, but it's how you interpret those ups and downs and use it to your advantage, which has been what Nick has been sharing. Something specific of having value, no value, trusting individuals, moving forward, getting on with it. And I'm going to have Nick say a few words in a moment for the Inspired Tribe. But remembering that there are 5 key energy types, which we have water, we have wood, we have fire, we have earth, and then we have metal. Each one of these, if I'm correct, the way Nick was sharing was we float in and out of them, but we are 1 or 2 of them in our primary state. So is that correct, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That flow, that movement between the two. And we change a little bit as we get older, but we're born a certain way. And that's brilliant. And
so if, do we, just to give us a question, so I'm going to go into that yin sort of yin-yang type methodology that we had. The conversation I've got clarity in my brain is do we kind of float in and out of these job specific, or are we something principally all the time and then outside with something else?
We are as we are. When we arrive, say we arrive in a particular job, we will do that job in that style of our energy. So we have a certain energy, and that's our window on the world, and we have to actively look at a different direction to be able to see things differently. And that's, again, part of the value. It goes saying, this is my bias. This is the way I see the world. If I'm going to have a complete picture, I have got to be aware of what my bias is in order to shift it to somewhere else. And I know what my bias is, and therefore I have to actively shift it in another direction when it serves me or other people to do that.
Brilliant. I'm just looking at some of the messages. I'm telling you what, we have been spoiled, haven't we, Sam? And we've absolutely been spoiled with the industry and the Inspired Tribe as well. Runa has just sent a lovely message for us all to understand, just as what we call not a testimonial, but an honest opinion, because Runa is one of our sisters. Both Nick and myself know her very, very well up in Iceland. Hey, so she's saying very, very clearly, as a member of Nick's monthly masterclass, I can tell you his wisdom has transformed my life. And that's just so wonderful to say. Simply profound way to understand yourself and others, just as important. I mean, love you, Runa. And, have you got anything to say back to her, Nick?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. The people on our master are, it's called This Vital Life. That's what their monthly membership is called, This Vital Life. And that's what it's about. It's this vital life that you're living. And Runa is the typical of the people we have on it who are just brilliant in their own right, enthusiastic, passionate. Runa is also, she's a trained interpreter. She's the only interpreter in Iceland. She occupies that space. She does it in America, Malta, all over the world she's doing it, as well as her own brilliant work on personal branding and speaking. So, yeah, Runa is, we love her. We love her.
Amazing. So just before, we've got about 1 minute left, and I'm just going to very encapsulate this. Nick, I and Sam would like to personally thank you tremendously for spoiling us with your unparalleled knowledge, I think, genuinely within the energies of the world and the human psychology. You know, we want people, when I Inspire Tribe, to really connect with everybody that we interview. And I think you've spoiled us. So Sam, over to yourself.
Thank you, Suki, and thank you, Nick, for being very authentic and very wisdom of, I would say, I haven't got any words to describe it, because we have been very blessed having you on our platform, and also sharing your wisdom, sharing your knowledge, and with my co-host Suki Waiwala, also his wisdom and his knowledge as well, very profound people, and sharing their wisdom with us. We are blessed. So watch out for the next date. We are going to be announcing very soon about our next guest as well, who's also going to be extremely exceptional person. So watch out and watch this channel. We are going to be doing, as Suki mentioned, we're going to put it in the bite size. And if you are live, you have the opportunity to have a direct connection with us, so we can be able to give you answers to your question right there and then. That's the benefit of coming to live and getting the right answer at the right time, instead of waiting for the segment to be dissect, and then be displayed on the other channels. So thank you everybody who has joined us today, and we are very humble, and we are looking forward to seeing you all next time. Goodbye, and have a fantastic day.
Just going to say very, very quickly, to find us is the and to watch the videos in past sort of context is the www.inspired-business.club. God bless you. Thank you very much, Inspired team. Over to you for the next event. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.